The gala was the kind that made headlines. A five-star hotel ballroom dressed in elegance, chandeliers glittering like frozen fireworks, velvet drapes kissing the polished marble floors, and a guest list stacked with politicians, CEOs, celebrities, and dignitaries flown in from all corners of the world. Security was tight, cameras were everywhere, and the scent of money, ambition, and expensive perfume filled the air. But the true centerpiece wasn't the decor. It wasn't the menu, or the musical act, or even the auction for absurdly overpriced art. The real star of the evening, the reason the event even existed, was Nelson Mandela. This wasn't just another fundraiser. It was his fundraiser, a benefit to raise money for a foundation carrying his name, his mission, his legacy, a cause built on peace, justice, and rebuilding lives that history had tried to erase. You'd think, with all of that weight, his presence would have been impossible to miss. But that's where this story gets wild. Because Mandela didn't arrive like most people would expect someone of his stature to arrive. There was no red carpet moment, no parade of black SUVs with flashing lights, no swarm of security rushing ahead to part the sea of guests like bodyguard Moses. Instead, there was just a man, a tall, elegant, older man, walking quietly up the carpeted stairs, flanked by a single aide. No fuss, no spotlight, just a quiet walk into a building full of people whose lives he had inspired, and in some cases, completely changed. And yet, when he reached the front entrance, he was greeted not with fanfare, but with formality. Standing at the entrance was a young volunteer, barely in her 20s, new to the world of high society galas, but committed to doing her job perfectly. She'd been briefed, trained, drilled on protocol. Names on the list. Badges visible. No badge. No entry. That was the rule. And so, when Mandela approached, she did what she was told. She smiled, took a breath, and said politely, "Excuse me, sir. May I see your invitation, please?" Now imagine this from her perspective. Just doing her job, standing face to face with one of the most recognizable figures on the planet, but not recognizing him. Mandela didn't flinch. He didn't raise an eyebrow. He didn't say, "Young lady, I am the invitation." No ego. No flex. No security detail jumping in with a, "Do you know who this is?" He just smiled. That calm, knowing, grandfatherly smile that disarmed even his political enemies. The kind of smile that came from surviving decades in prison and still choosing forgiveness over vengeance. "Of course," he said softly. And then, with no irritation, no need to prove anything, he reached into his coat pocket and handed her the invitation. The young woman took it, cross-checked the list, nodded, and gestured him inside. Still clueless. He thanked her, and walked in like it was just another Tuesday. The irony? Inside that ballroom, hundreds of people were buzzing in anticipation, craning their necks for a glimpse of him. The very person who was calmly handing over his ID at the door had a room full of millionaires and world leaders waiting to shake his hand. And the young volunteer, still blissfully unaware that she had just asked one of the most powerful moral voices in modern history to show ID. Now let's be real. Many celebrities or former heads of state might have taken offense. They might have scoffed, gotten someone fired, played the "Do you know who I am?" card. But Mandela, he'd been through worse, far worse. He knew what it was like to be stripped of dignity, to be caged, beaten, forgotten. And yet here he was, a free man, a revered leader, being asked to prove his place at his own event. And instead of reacting with pride or offense, he reacted with grace. That's what made Mandela Mandela. Moments later, he entered the ballroom. And when the host took the stage and announced his name, the entire room erupted. A standing ovation. Cameras flashing. People clapping like they were trying to bring the roof down. The same man who had been politely carted at the door was now being celebrated like a king. And that poor volunteer, Let's just say, she connected the dots real fast. The color drained from her face. Her eyes widened. That man, that gentle, smiling man, was Nelson Mandela. The Nelson Mandela. The reason for the gala. The man whose life story had been studied in textbooks, whose name was synonymous with peace, perseverance, and humility. She'd asked him for ID, and he'd simply complied. No shade, no scolding, just an unshakable grace. That moment became one of those quietly legendary stories, the kind whispered backstage at future events, told in green rooms and charity circles, passed down from one volunteer coordinator to the next. The time Mandela showed his invitation without flinching. The time he let a young woman make a mistake and turned it into a masterclass in humility. It wasn't a viral moment. It wasn't tweeted or live-streamed. But it was felt by everyone who heard about it afterward. Because in that moment, in that one interaction, Nelson Mandela didn't just show us how to lead nations. He showed us how to lead ourselves. With patience, with grace, with humility so powerful, it puts pride to shame.